Welcome back to Relationship Rescue. I'm your host, Valery Molone, and today I have a very special guest joining me, Jessica Da Silva, a licensed marriage and family therapist and attachment coach who specializes in helping adults break free from unhealthy dating patterns and step into secure, thriving relationships. Jessica is the creator of the What Would Secure Me Do framework, and she's guided thousands of people worldwide through her coaching programs and resources. Her work blends psychology, attachment theory, and practical strategies to help you understand your relationship style. And most importantly, how to rewire it so you can finally feel safe, confident, and secure in love. In this conversation, we're diving into attachment styles, why so many of us get stuck in anxious or avoidant patterns, and the key steps you can take to start building the healthy, lasting relationship you truly deserve. So, if you've ever wondered why your relationships feel like a roller coaster, or how to finally find peace and balance in love, you won't want to miss this episode. Jessica, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. I follow your work and I love what you do. And in this podcast, we are always talking about things that matters to young people and their relationship. And life is full of other stuff, and relationship is one of the biggest thing that people focus on, but they always get it wrong. So we bring a special guest like yourself to give them the little bit of relief and talk about things that they think it's a big deal, but with a little adjustment they can fix and they can better their relationship. So that's why I'm so excited that you're here and you are known for attachment style.
Yes, I am known for attachment styles, and it has been, this healing journey. Obviously, I've been going through it myself my entire life. So to
Mhm.
be able to integrate it and share it with people it's a blessing. It really is.
So what led you to specialize in attachment style?
So I have had a series of toxic relationships my entire life. It didn't just start with me. It started with my mom. I mean, you can trace it back to like my great grandma, essentially, right? So these attachment patterns and traumas get passed down from generation to generation. And I realized I am going to have a heart attack. Like something physical, like something physically bad is going to happen to me if I don't change these patterns and change my ways. And learning about attachment styles, I learned about it in graduate school for marriage and family therapy. And I finally realized, wow, there's a reason for why I think, feel, and behave the way that I do when it comes to love. And most importantly, I'm not stuck to these patterns, I can change them. So it was really just recognizing my relationships suck. They're toxic, they're unhealthy. I need to change this. How can I change it? And attachment science kind of opened up my eyes to this new world.
You teach four style of attachment. What are those?
Yes. So there's the anxious attachment. There's the disorganized attachment style or fearful avoidant. There's dismissive avoidant. And then there's the secure attachment. Yes, but I wanted to just preface and say that no one fits perfectly into any category. So it's a spectrum. So, for me, I was disorganized attachment, leaning anxious.
Mm.
So we always have kind of like a primary and a secondary attachment style.
You mentioned, I saw a couple of your videos. You said that attachment problem starts when you're young,
Yes,
from person that take care of you, from your take caretaker.
exactly.
How does that work?
Yeah, so it's really fascinating, right? The attachment or the bond that we formed with our earliest attachment figures, mom, dad, grandma, whoever it was that raised you essentially,
Mm.
you learn to relate, right? Based off of that experience. What happens though is research shows us that we carry that way of bonding and relating into all of our relationships, which is why you kind of recreate these same similar, relationship dynamics that you experienced when you were young, essentially. So once you can kind of identify those patterns, you can stop looking for people to reinforce those same relationship experiences.
And it could possibly be from avoiding having those closeness for a lot of people, that you go to the other side of it and you become very attached to everybody that you meet. That's also can be the case, right?
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about that. What do you
Well,
mean?
a lot of people either they grew up without the family, in a foster home or things like that, or they grew up on their own. So my story is that I grew up in a family. In a young age, I was given away from
Mm,
family to family to family. So then after that, I got married and my marriage was arranged.
oh.
Okay. So then that period of time come in, and I was kind of like never got attached to anybody. I was like mostly on my own. And I was like, from a very young age, I built this thing that anybody that I would see, I would feel like, oh my God, this is it. Like, this is the person that's going to love me. This is the person that's going to care for me. But it didn't. and
Mm.
and the disappointment was there, but I was keep reaching for that and getting attached to so many people one after another in order to get that closeness. So but well, I realized it later on that it was because I didn't have closeness with anybody when I was young, and that was the reason for me to get attached to anybody that I met. And like you said, millions of toxic relationship you know
Yeah, exactly. So that would be a really good example of, someone who has been, an orphan or someone who was highly, highly neglected growing up. It can either be that you become hyper independent, very avoidant as an adult, where it's like, I'm independent, I don't need anybody, I can take care of myself, where you keep a very big distance from emotional intimacy, or you've kind of had a little bit of a taste of what it feels like to have connection, and then you long for it. So you become highly anxious, um, where you just grab onto anybody to give you any kind of love or attention. Or you
I've
could
done
be,
both.
yes. So you
I've
might,
done both. It's so true, because as I'm listening to you, at first it was grabbing onto everything, but then you're like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm good. Like, I don't want to, I don't need you in my life. And you isolate yourself.
yes. So I'm wondering, Valerie, if you might have some disorganized attachment as well.
It sounds like it. It sounds
Yeah.
like when I read your attachment styles that you teach, when you were talking about it, I was like going through it and I was like, that sounds like disorganizing attachment.
Yeah, where it's like very hot and cold. You want love, but you push it away. You want love, but you push it away. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of
Mm,
fear around intimacy and getting close, even though you
yeah.
desire it. You deeply, deeply desire it, but you're deeply afraid of it too at the same time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I tried, well, that was when I was young. And then obviously I worked on myself and I'm getting so much better. And I have my kids and then I get attached to them and everything. And I teach my kids not to look, I can call them my kids. They're not kids,
Yeah.
they're young, young adults, but still, I try to give them that message and teach them not to be too attached or de-attached.
Yeah.
But my question for our listeners that are listening right now, I'm going to ask you a question that a lot of people get very attached very fast when they're dating. Why is that?
So again, it depends on your attachment system, right? So for instance, anxious attachers, which I fall very anxious as well, we crave love. We crave that intimacy. We crave the connection. So
Mm,
oftentimes we don't really pace ourselves when it comes to dating, when it comes to getting someone, because we just want the connection so badly. So we
mm,
just rush into things. We pedestal people, we fantasize about them without actually getting to know who they are, right? And the reality of who they are. We become emotionally intimate very quickly, physically intimate very quickly. So again, it's more of a pacing problem. We don't actually take the
mm,
time to get to know somebody. We just rush into things because anxious attachers, all they want is connection. I just want connection.
mm.
Yeah.
I love that you said that pedestal. I use that word a lot. They put them on a pedestal and they describe them that they're so perfect, that almost taking attention from themselves, and they give the other person such a, praise, that this is why I am attached to this person, because. But I look at it as that those are the things that you're lacking within yourself,
Hmm. Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, and anxious attachers especially, they tend to have a negative concept of self and a positive concept of others, which is
Mm,
why they pedestal people, right? Which is why they tend to put more value on the external versus seeing their own value and their own worth.
mm.
So that's something that we also have to catch within ourselves.
When it comes to attachment. Now, is sex has anything to do with attachment when it comes to dating or in an intimate relationship?
Oh, for sure. Yes. I mean, yeah, once you have that sexual intimacy, it does form more of an attachment bond, right? Those attachment chemicals are being released, and you do form closer, intimate connections and bonds to people. So that's why I also suggest when you're dating, wait until you know that this person is actually maybe something sustainable or someone that you want to have a relationship with in the future. Again, with the anxious attachers especially, and disorganized do this too, is we jump, right? Anything to just get this person, anything to just lock this down, right? Anything to win this person. Or how can I feel connected to them? We often jump to sex. We jump to that physical intimacy. So pace yourself because you're going to save yourself a lot of heartache and unnecessary attachment. Yeah.
And that's why they ask this question, because a lot of our listeners are asking us questions. So when can we have sex? Is it bad to have sex on the first date or second date or third date? What are the time things? But it's basically what you're saying is that recognize your own personality of who you are and how why you're looking for that sex, right? It could be some people can have sex and be like, I'm good, I don't need to be attached to that person. But other people, and scientifically it's been proven that we get attached to that person faster. So when somebody tells you not to have sex, it's not because you have to wait, but there's a theory behind that.
100%. I know for me personally, if I like somebody and I have sex with them immediately, I know I get attached, right? Because I know how my attachment system operates. I know my nervous system.
Mm,
So it really does require you knowing yourself, and understanding your attachment style gives you that insight into understanding yourself and how you experience love. So for me, I cannot have sex immediately. Because if I
right.
do, I will attach, I'll form expectations, you know, it's it it,
Mm.
it doesn't help the situation.
And
Yeah.
sex is also very intimate too. I mean, the vulnerability that comes with it
Yeah.
could be very important when it comes to attachment, because you are completely and utterly vulnerable when you're having sex. And I always tell my clients that when you do have sex, that's the only time we both persons are very focused on each other, you
Yeah.
know? Because once the dating comes in and all that stuff, people avoid, people do a lot of stuff, but sex is the only time that people really pay attention to each other. And it's really dangerous because that you can get attached to that feeling.
100%. Yeah. And so a lot of us anxious attachers as well, and fearful avoidance, they can kind of dismissive avoidance, they can kind of have sex and remain a bit detached. But if you have more of that anxious attachment, yeah, you might use sex as a form to feel connected, to feel seen, to feel nurtured, to feel, like you're being attended to. But is that actually true, right? Is that only momentary, or is it something that's going to progress into something more sustainable? So that's why, again, pacing yourself and really taking the time to see, okay, is why am I having sex? Like, what is the intention here? Is it
Right,
because we have a connection and I feel respected, you know what I mean? And this is going somewhere, or is it because I'm trying to meet an emotional need in the moment?
right, right.
Yeah.
So if somebody's listening right now, I know we talked about you teach four style of attachment. What are some things that we have to think about to recognize that we do have attachment problem?
Yeah. So, well, I'll go through the four attachment styles. So the first one is the anxious attachment or preoccupied. So anxious attachers, again, they just crave relationships. They're often those people that jump from one relationship to another because, they find a lot of value in relationships. Oftentimes they don't really know how to be alone.
Hmm.
And so they meet a lot of their emotional needs through relationships. The problem with that is oftentimes you're seeking too much external validation that you're losing touch with yourself. You lose yourself in relationships because you never really had a relationship with yourself. right? You're always thinking about someone else. Um, so to understand anxious attachment within you is, oh my God, am I always trying to meet my needs through someone else? And if they can't meet those needs, do I panic? Do I freak out, right? Do I become totally dysregulated? That's when you know you have anxious attachment. Dismissive avoidant, complete opposite. Dismissive avoidant, very, very hyper independent people, right? Very resourceful. They need a lot of space. They need a lot of freedom, individuality. They tend to get very suffocated within relationships.
Mhm.
So they have a hard time, yeah, co regulating with someone, coexisting with somebody. And you know that you have dismissive avoidant if intimacy scares you, right? If intimacy causes you to, yeah, just want to kind of distance yourself a bit. You tend to push people away. You tend to feel like I'm self-sufficient. I can do it all on my own. I don't need anybody.
Right, right. And the other two?
And then disorganized is both anxious and avoidant.
Okay.
But with disorganized attachment, because anyone can have both anxious and avoidant, disorganized often comes from severe levels of trauma, whether it was like severe neglect, severe abuse. For me, my disorganized attachment came from my mom, love her to death, bless her soul. But growing up, she was tough. She could be very mean, very scary. So sometimes she was loving, other times she was the scariest person to be around.
Yeah,
So you develop this kind of like, I want love, but I don't feel safe. I want love, but I'm afraid of it. So you're constantly in and out. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, and that's kind of what leads to the disorganized way of experiencing love. And then the last one is secure. So, secure attachment, that's something we can all kind of gravitate towards. Again, nobody is 100% secure attached, right? No one's perfect in
Right.
all their ways.
Of
So,
course.
it might be that you're secure, but you lean a little anxious, or you're secure, but you lean a little avoidant or disorganized. I would say now I'm mostly secure, but I definitely see my anxious coming out. I see disorganized coming out. It's all there. Like all those parts of me are still there. It's just that secure me knows how to, better regulate myself when I'm stressed. Secure me knows how to choose the right partner versus what I was
Mm.
used to in the past, right? Secure you just has more awareness, more like emotional intelligence, and just skills to, face relationship challenges.
Yeah, you catch yourself on those patterns that you had before. Doesn't go completely, but at least you catch it. And then, like you said, regulating yourself, which is a skill that we will talk about,
Yeah.
how to regulate yourself when you do have attachment problem. But what is one myth about attachment style that you wish people would stop believing?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think the biggest one is that there is some ultimate level of secure attachment that you get to, and all of a sudden you're healed. All of a sudden
Mm.
you have no more insecurities, right? Life is perfect. And I'm sorry to break it to you, but that's not the reality, And there's so many programs too, right? That kind of stress, oh, you're going to reach, full secure attachment and you're never going to have any kind of insecurities, and that's just not the reality. It's
Right.
you're always evolving. As humans, you're always evolving, you're always learning, you're always growing. So I would say to kind of change the way that you look at earning your secure attachment as, how can you just be present with yourself every single day? And how can you just practice realigning with that secure version of you as opposed to thinking that you can just be that version of you all the time? Because that's not realistic.
Really not.
No. No, I see myself reverting all the time, but you just have to
Yeah.
keep realigning, and that's okay. It's accepting and surrendering and giving yourself grace through the process.
Yeah. And I find it that the myth that people say, like, like you just said, that the highest is the high. You always have to be on that cloud nine. You always have to be excited. You always have to be, always have to do stuff. Well, it's so loving. It doesn't work that way. Or the lowest are very low, depression and being in a toxic relationship. And that neutral level that they have to find, I think to me, that's the secure one. Sometimes, you have moments, but it's okay. You're not always going to be happy, but you're not always going to be sad. And a lot of people having a hard time to find that neutral uh, platform in their relationship to say, you know what, I'm comfortable.
Yeah. 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 And that's what it is. It's like, can you just be content, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be this extreme high. And it also doesn't, you don't have to live in this space of extreme low, but can you just find a place of contentment and compassion and acceptance and surrender?
Yeah.
And it's hard to find that. And it's hard to accept that space when you've experienced such highs and lows throughout your life.
And also, we see a lot on the internet and we see a lot on celebrity and things like that give us the version of that this always good, it's always good. So our expectation is coming from that people that we surround ourselves with. And we believe that, oh my God, if it's not to that level, then I'm in a bad relationship. But if you're content, that's good enough.
100%. Yeah, if you're content, that is good enough. And contentment is going to look so different for everybody too, right? Every
Yeah.
relationship is so different. So, yeah, we cannot compare ourselves to what we see online. Because I know a lot of people, a lot of relationships that I wouldn't find contentment, but they do, you know?
No, I'm glad you said that because it's so true. It's so true. We look different and our expectation of a relationship is different. So, what is a great relationship for you? And that's all what matters in the end.
100%. Yeah. And how are you feeling within those relationships? Because we all have different needs. We all have very different emotional needs. So that's why relationships look so different because everyone's operating from their own needs and relationship needs. So as long as you feel as though your needs are being met for the most part, because it's not going to be perfect, but for the
Hmm.
most part, are these needs being met? You have a pretty good thing going on, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. So, how do attachment wound makes it hard for some people to set boundaries in their relationship?
Ooh, boundaries. That's a great, great topic. So, again, what I love about attachment science is that it teaches us that humans are wired for connection, right? We're
Right.
biologically wired for connection and bonding. The thing is, if you have an insecure attachment, so anxious, dismissive, or the disorganized attachment, our our perception of connection is kind of distorted, right? So
Right.
we still want to maintain connection. And so what happens is we will abandon our boundaries. We will abandon our needs, abandon our feelings to maintain that connection because that's all we need, right? We're operating from
Mhm.
survival at this point. So it might be that I abandon my boundary of, let's say like the people pleasing, right? I'm going to say yes to everything because if I say no, you might leave or you might not like me anymore. So with boundaries, it's a lot of abandoning ourselves to
Mm.
maintain connection because of that wounding experience and the fear
Right.
of abandonment.
Right. And it's so important too, because that's kind of like bring you back to the groundness of what you want. Because we have this persona, like you said, people pleasing, and I'm glad you used that term because a lot of people don't realize how much of a people pleaser we are. Till we become better and then be like, oh my God, I used to say yes to everything. Yes, yes, yes to everything. And actually it's damaging to do that. So that values that you're talking about, it's not like we don't have it. We just have this persona and we want that person so bad that we just forget about ourselves.
For sure. And I did it all the time, you
Me too.
know?
Me too.
All the time. Like I appeared to be so much cooler than I actually was. I was like, go with the flow. Oh, you want to eat there? You want to do this? You want me to learn how to ride a motorcycle? Sure. It's like, Jess, like, when are you gonna do that in your life? Do you even wanna do that? Do you even like to do that, you know? But you did it so that you could appear more attractive than you thought you were to win that person over, to later down the line realizing, "Wow, we're actually so different.
Yeah,
What
I don't like that.
who am I?" You know?
Yeah, I don't wanna do it. I don't like that. What are you talking about? Why did you
Yeah.
say that? And this whole thing, it starts and you're like, "No," and you're so deep in the relationship now that you're like, "Oh, fuck. What do I do now?"
Exactly. And that, Valerie, is the problem, right? Is when we don't set our boundaries, we don't honor our values, our needs. That's what happens. We morph into something that we're not. And then years down the line, we realize, why am I so unhappy?
Yeah, yeah. I said I know how to cook. I don't know how to cook, or I don't wanna clean, or I don't wanna, but the biggest, no, 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 Jessica, the biggest one is that when people, wanna get married or don't wanna get married or having a kid, those are big decisions. That, I mean, a lot of, I just had a coach, on my episode that she was talking about, she wanted to get married and wanted to have baby, but then the person that she met, he didn't want it. And some of the decision that, you're making that is important to you, you can push that aside because it will come up later and destroy the whole relationship.
Mm,
Minor is okay here or there, but that's the most important thing when it comes to boundaries.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting that you say that because I'm confronting that in my life right now with dating and
Okay.
not wanting kids, but my anxious attachment, right, is kind of doubting, oh, maybe I do because all of these men want kids, so maybe you do, Jessica. So it's interesting because I've been doing this work for 10 years now, but I still see that anxious attachment still kind of
Yeah.
popping its head. And then I have to ask myself, wait a second, is it because I'm adaptable or is it because I'm afraid? And I feel
Yeah.
like I need to know I want to have kids in order to get married and have the whole thing.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, you have to look at it this way. In certain age, I gab it in the 10 years. We change as we grow. I'm so much older than you. So I know that when I was 20, I think
Mm,
differently than 30, than 40, than 50. So sometime the moment that you are and you have and that belief, and it's really important to you, people should honor that. Now,
yeah.
later, like you said, you could be adaptable and say, you know what? I decided, no, I don't want to have it. Or, okay, it's not as bad as I thought. But understanding that at that moment, there's nothing wrong with that, which we get a lot of criticism for.
Mm,
Like your age, somebody saying that I don't want to have a kids, and the society's like, what are you talking about? And this is whatever. But this is important to you right now, and that's matter,
yeah.
and we should look at ourselves that way, that even though other people don't see it that way, this right now, this moment, this is my values, this is what I believe, this is how I feel.
Yeah.
Later on, it might change, but as of now, the person that I'm going with at least should be flexible to
Yeah.
this desire that I have.
Yeah, yeah, and that's exactly what I'm trying to work within myself right now. Little self-disclosure for whoever's
No,
listening.
but it's important because a
Yeah.
lot of people avoid this kind of conversation when it comes to dating, when it comes to marriage, when it comes
Yeah.
to all of that, because you have certain version of you, and then obviously our demon from the past. Because don't tell me that anybody in this earth have not been through some type of a trauma,
Yeah.
and especially in a relationship, and thinking about that and making decision now and going in the future is the hardest thing.
For sure.
So it's normal to think that way. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with thinking that way, but I love what you just said, that now you're more prone to recognizing those patterns and making
Yeah.
decision from there versus going back to that comfortable zone that you are.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to show people, is that those parts are always going to be there. Like they're
Yeah.
always going to be there. And so how do you respond to it differently? So a way to kind of regulate myself and get back on track is I'll ask myself, what would secure me do? What would secure me do in this situation? And secure me or secure you is always grounded in your values, transparency, honesty, integrity, right? Compassion. So whenever I'm afraid to have those discussions with people I'm dating, I'll step into my secure self and be like, hey, this is how I feel. Right now, I don't know exactly what I want. And I don't know how you're going to react to that, but at least I'm being vulnerable and open with you. Even if it disappoints you, even if you reject me, even if you leave, at least I'm still honoring myself. So it takes a lot of courage to shift these patterns. It does.
It does. I love the secure me. I saw you have it on your cup, coffee cup.
Always next to me.
There you go. And that's a good question to bring yourself home and to bring
Yeah.
yourself to that contentment that we talked about and to make a decision from there and not to from the attachment.
Yeah.
So, what is your takeaway on healing within the relationship versus healing on your own?
Mm. So you can heal in both directions. So research actually says that because we were wounded within relationship, we heal within a relationship. However, it's important to do the work even when you're alone because you want to be able to recognize and appreciate a good secure person when you see them, right? When you come across
Mhm.
them. So whenever I have people saying, "Oh, should I even do this work because I'm single right now?" Absolutely. You can start developing that secure relationship with yourself, right? Because it all starts, I think you
Mm.
even mentioned this in the beginning, but it all starts with yourself, developing that secure relationship with yourself. So, um, understanding, well, what are my relationship values? What are my needs in a relationship? And being single, perfect opportunity to start meeting those needs
Mm.
yourself, to know what that even feels like, to give yourself attention, to give yourself, appreciation, to give yourself attunement. Because the more that you get to know yourself on that intimate level, you're going to recognize someone else who mirrors that to you. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then when you're in relationship is also good because you learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah.
They're a part of you that you didn't know. Because I always say when you're alone, you're always good.
Yeah.
Once you learn your values and stuff, dealing alone within yourself can be much easier versus having somebody and then be secure.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And in relationships, that's when you're going to get the most triggered.
Yeah,
That's when, yeah, you're going to be required to have the tough conversations, to, express your feelings and needs. It's scary to do that within relationships if you're not used to it.
absolutely. Absolutely. So with that being said, how can somebody differentiate between, being triggered or it's a red flag on a relationship?
Um, that's a good question too. So, when you're triggered, the thing is you can be triggered in a healthy relationship and in an unhealthy relationship. So, a lot of the time you kind of want to ask yourself, is this stemming from fear, right? Is this trigger? Actually, so my go-to strategy to kind of regulate myself when it comes to triggers is checking in with yourself and asking yourself, what am I feeling right now? What's the
Mm,
feeling and what's the underlying need? What's the need here that wants to get met? So
mm,
maybe it is I'm feeling triggered because someone didn't call me, right? They didn't call me back within an hour.
right.
I'm feeling super anxious. What do I need? I need security. I just need reassurance that everything's okay.
Right.
So, how do I meet that need? Perhaps it looks like just reaching out to the person,
Right.
and, seeing if everything's okay. So, if I can reach out to that person and they can meet the need and reassure me, I know that it's not necessarily a red flag. A red flag would be I'm feeling anxious, I have this need, and this person can't meet the need, right? They're not willing to, they're unpredictable, they're inconsistent, they're showing me patterns that aren't necessarily receptive or, um, loving or caring.
Mm.
So that's how I would kind of differentiate it is trying to find out what the underlying need is and seeing are they receptive to meeting the need or not. If they're not, probably a red flag person.
A red flag, yeah.
Hmm.
Especially in dating. No,
Yeah.
I love what you said. That's perfect. Consistency. If they're consistent on all the time, and like you said, one time you get triggered, you're like, okay, that need is there. I don't mind calling them, and they make you feel more secure. I was busy or something like that. Versus like you constantly conscious. I mean, not conscious, anxious of they're not calling you. and then you feel like they're not consistent. They don't really want to, and
Yeah.
that's a red flag.
Yes. Yes.
It's like I don't feel that person.
Yes. And you know, if it's hysterical, it's historical. Okay? So oftentimes when we're feeling consistently triggered or anxious in a relationship dynamic, it's usually not a good sign, right? Because there's probably some level of inconsistency, unpredictability, instability that you're experiencing more consistently. So it's like a
Mm,
pattern. If that's what you're experiencing more often, I would say it's probably not a good person, or it could be that you're just not communicating what you're needing in that relationship
yeah.
for them to meet you. But I know for me, um when I dated someone, my last relationship, it was 7 years. It was overall a good relationship, healthy relationship, but he was very consistent. He was reliable, he was dependable. So my nervous system naturally wasn't very activated because I could rely on him.
Mm,
So it really does depend on the person and if they have these patterns that actually soothe your nervous system rather than really dysregulate and trigger it.
yeah. When it brings the worst of you, when you hate yourself being that person.
Yes. Valerie, I've had so many sleepless nights because of, oh my God, do they like me? Are they going to reach out tomorrow? I haven't heard from them today, versus people that are just consistent. And I
Yeah.
know I'm going to hear from them. I know they're thinking of me. Your body knows, like your body will let you know.
And that's so important because in today's society, that's a lot of that's going on. A lot of that's going. He or she didn't text me. Oh my God, does he like me? Should I be myself? Should I not be myself? And this is why communication, like you said, is becoming so hard. And they're like trying to be somebody that they're not. So, with that being said, when it comes to communication, I have a theory that people call me that if you work with Valerie, it's almost like a boot camp.
We need that. I love a good boot camp.
um, my theory on that is that when it comes to dating and choosing somebody, because I've been to so many of these scenarios, and and felt it, went through it, got hurt, got up again, did it again and again. So I always advise people like put all your cards on the table,
Yes.
know what you want, put all your cards on the table and take it from there versus like waiting and find out, see how it goes. That's
Yeah.
my style. But what is your advice between being honest and oversharing?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna always come back to the pacing. I think it's
Okay.
really, really important for pacing because I've also heard people suggest, just let it all out on the first date, and just be totally transparent with everything that you've experienced and everything that you need. I don't think that's necessarily good. I have done that in the past, and it kind of created this weird emotional unrealistic bond with somebody, right? It's
Hmm.
too fast too soon. So I think just pacing yourself, that the first date, just getting to know this person, asking basic questions of, what do you do? Do you like your job? Where do you like to live? Like, what are your experiences? What are your hobbies? Just kind of brushing the surface in the beginning and then slowly sharing more about who you are and your past experiences. The pacing is going to look different for everybody, but I suggest going at about it just at a slower level. And then slowly sharing, yeah, this has been my past experiences. I could say like maybe, the third date, going a little bit deeper as to, what have your relationships been like? Because you do want to respect people's boundaries. And I think
Hmm.
that slowly kind of going into it is a good strategy. Even like giving yourself 1 month, if you really
Yeah.
do like this
Yeah.
person, 1 month to kind of get to know them a little bit deeper.
Let me clarify that for my listeners because they're probably thinking that I'm telling them to share between, like you said, sharing and getting to know them. I
Yeah.
believe that when you're going, because I teach 5 stage of love, like what are
Mm,
that looks like. Okay. So there's every time you associate yourself with that person with intention of wanting to be romantically involved, there's a
Mm.
stage to each uh, level. So when you meet somebody, I think they should know that if you are looking for something serious or just we're just hanging out,
Mm.
oversharing is that when you meet somebody for the first time and you can't just share that, oh my god, I went through so much trauma, I was
Yeah.
like, I was, god forbid, raped, or I was molested or something like that. That's oversharing, because the other person may be not ready for that, because we don't know who we're dealing with. But clarity of, this is what I'm looking for, what are you looking for?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think that's important.
Yes. And I like that. So that is a big difference,
Yeah.
stating your goals and your intentions versus trauma dumping, and which I used to do, by the way. Let
Me
me,
too.
what's your relationship with mom like? What's your relationship? I want to know
I think,
everything.
hold up.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
That is so true. That is so true. It's scary sometimes for other person.
It is. It is. And being a therapist, it sucks sometimes, Valerie, but like that's the only way I know how to connect sometimes, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I have to pace myself, but I do like your strategy of, okay, let's just, these are the intentions. This is kind of what I'm looking for without going too deep into why just yet, right?
Because you might not even gonna get to that level.
That's true.
You might not gonna, and the reason I bring this conversation with you is that there's a lot of this hanging out going on in today's society with the young couples that are, there is no title.
Mm,
They are with each other, and that's why I call it five stage of love, because there is no title, because title comes with responsibility, right? So I'm not gonna give you a title, we're just hanging out. What exactly that means, like, how, because then you're confused, how much should I share, or should I know you, should I not know you? Because, like, as we discussed, there's difference between oversharing and putting your cards on the table, that I'm looking for this, are we in the same page to
mm,
continue from this conversation, or like you said, we might not even gonna get there.
yeah.
This is it, nice to meet you, no hard feeling, that was great,
Yeah.
let's move on.
Yeah, yeah. And that's such a good practice for any insecure attachment style because, again, we're so afraid of saying, hey, these are my intentions. This is what I'm looking for. The fear is that's going to push or scare somebody away. But really, secure you honors that about
Yeah,
themselves and they know what they're looking for. So I love that.
yeah. So how do an anxious or avoidance style shows up in dating or committed relationship? What are some signs?
Yeah, so with the anxious attachment and dating, it could be, being kind of very excessive in the beginning, oversharing, not really respecting boundaries necessarily, abandoning their own boundaries, not being very agreeable, very people pleasing, wanting to rush things, like, oh my God, let's hang out with each other every other day type of thing, or
Mm,
texting every single day. They just need a lot of reassurance and connection. With the avoidant, you'll notice they talk a lot about independence, doing things
mm,
alone, right? That sense of individuality. They might not share very much at all, keeping things very surface leveled. Um, they take a lot of time, a lot more time to kind of progress and connect and commit. Not always though, because in the beginning they can seem pretty secure, but over time with avoidance, you start to see their attachment.
I was just gonna say that. As you described, I was just gonna say that that comes back to our conversation, that at first you might even not know that
Yeah.
one day when they're like, but then slowly, slowly you see they're bringing other stuff as a priority, but you.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And, even with my clients, they'll come to me and they'll be like, Jess, I thought they were secure, or I think they're secure, but why am I feeling so anxious? I'm like, okay, remember, it's coming from somewhere. If it's hysterical, it's historical, right? The reactions aren't just coming from anywhere. So there's some needs there that aren't being met, right?
Right,
And if you
right.
can, what happens is once they start addressing those needs with the avoidant, they start to recognize, oh, wow, actually, this person is avoidant because now they're backing off. Now they're not even
Mm.
like reaching out as much as they were anymore. So after that honeymoon stage, you go into the power struggle stage. And that's oftentimes where there's more, like you said, like the commitment, the expectations, responsibility. That's when you start to see people's true colors and their attachment styles.
Yeah. Now,
Mhm.
attachment is different for men and for women. Obviously, women, our listeners are listening right now. As a woman, I could tell you right now, they're like, oh my God, that sounds like me, right?
Yeah.
We're very vulnerable within ourselves. It's like, oh, I'm listening to this, that sounds like me. Um, but men has a little bit of hard time
Mm.
because they always was taught to put their emotion aside and bury them and not like realize that they hear it, they recognize themselves, but then it goes away. So what would your advice would be for men that are listening that they have attachment problem?
So I would say, you know, when I work with anxious men, anxious attached men, they're very aware that they're anxious. They are. They just suppress it, right? They tell themselves, "Oh, I don't want to seem too weak. I don't want to seem too needy. So I'm just going to pretend that I'm not experiencing these feelings, but I am." Um, I would say it doesn't matter if you're female or male, right? Everyone has an attachment style. So if you have the anxious attachment, the best way for you to feel confident and secure is for you to just accept that this is how I operate. And how can I just learn the tools to better regulate myself so that I can be more stable in relationships? So it's honestly taking responsibility and accountability for your attachment style. Don't dismiss it, don't suppress it, because that's not going to help the situation. But rather, how can I address this and actually do something about it so I can be this secure,
A secure person.
say, yeah, person in this relationship?
Yeah, because it's such a myth that men were told not to show emotion, not to express their feeling. And
Yeah.
even when they, like you said, they recognize they have the attachment problem, they don't want to talk about it because they're embarrassed. Like, should I talk about this? Their masculinity is like, I don't know if I'm should or should not. So I'm glad that you mentioned that it's okay. It doesn't make you, that doesn't make you weak. As a matter of fact, it makes you stronger.
Definitely. Valerie, I have dated a lot of avoidant men, and avoidant men tend to be a bit more attractive and appealing, right? Because they appear very confident, they appear very stoic and stable. But once you get into a relationship with them over time, you realize, wow, like there's no emotional connection here. Like this isn't actually fulfilling. I would rather personally be with someone who is anxious but can control themselves. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
they have the capacity to really love deeply and care rather than someone who's this confident avoidant, you know?
Oh yeah. They're lying to themselves.
Yeah.
And also some of the signs for these men that are listening is like going from relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship. So at some point you have to take responsibility and say, because I had a coach that we were talking about it, and he said that at some point I said to myself, I'm the common denominator.
Yeah.
It's my problem. I'm avoiding my feeling. And for a man to say that, I gotta say, it's much more braver than for a woman, because we always express our feeling way too much.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I think it's the sexiest thing when a man can just embrace their emotions and they can connect to their emotions and they can express their emotions, but then they also know how to regulate themselves, and they know how to, yeah, just like connect to themselves deeply and in a healthy way. I think that's so beautiful to have that balance of masculine and feminine within you.
That's the most beautiful thing for a man. I find that very sexy
Yeah.
when a man can actually show vulnerability, once in a while, and tell you,
Yeah.
I'm upset. Like I can't do this, or how do I do this?
Yeah.
Or what do you need?
Yeah.
Teach me or something. It's much more better to have those conversations with your partner versus like avoiding it and just go head to head all the time.
Exactly. Exactly.
Changing the subject from that to more advanced technology that a lot of people these days, a lot of couples these days using chat gpt as their
Mm,
therapist. What do you think of that?
mm. I think ChatGPT is wonderful in terms of providing reassurance and validation. I think ChatGPT can be really helpful in terms of helping you regulate, because a lot of the times we just want to feel heard. We do. We want to feel heard, we want to feel validated, we want to feel reassured, and that's what ChatGPT does. Now, in terms of actually ChatGPT understanding the depth of the dynamic and being able to like teach you the methods and teach you the tools on a personal level, I don't think it's effective in that way. Um, so in terms of more problem solving and teaching you these tools, I think it has its challenges there, but in terms of providing reassurance and validation, it could be very helpful. Yeah,
Yeah. I believe that I think a lot of time for people that are like to vent,
exactly.
ChatGPT could be good because it's very agreeable. Notice that ChatGPT always agree with you and comfort you. And there's a time that in order for you to take accountability, they completely avoid that. So we should be careful of that because with the
Mhm.
people like yourself, therapists, you will find those places and say, you know what, this what you're doing, and you need to take accountability or recognize where is it
Mhm.
coming from. And that is the part that ChatGPT cannot help you with. And a study shows, actually, the latest study was that 75 people of person, they are relying on ChatGPT than the therapists right now. These are young people, not older one. That's a big number. So that's why I ask you, because I know you're a therapist and a lot of people think that. But I personally believe that it's good for venting once in a while if you wanted to talk to them to get this, agree with you and say, no, you're good. But rather than that, could be very dangerous to give you something that you don't even know where is it coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And ChatGPT doesn't know you on that personal level. And kind of like you said, it's not really going to challenge you, right? If it's only agreeing with you and providing that validation or that mirror, essentially it's just mirroring you. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's not actually looking for those incongruencies. It's not actually looking for ways to challenge your traumas and challenge, whatever is actually coming up for you in those moments.
So if somebody's listening right now, Jessica, and they're like this person, they're infatuated with this person, they're not together yet, but they wanted to go out there and date and yet want to be themselves, but not too vulnerability and oversharing.
Mm.
What your advice would be? How long do you have to know somebody before you can actually say, okay, now we can go further?
There's and I don't know if you use this rule, but there's a 3-month rule, which I think is a pretty good amount of time for you to really assess someone's patterns, because within 3 months, a lot of things are going to kind of come up. And that's the thing is you do not want to pedestal someone immediately. I would even suggest, with pacing comes, dating, getting to know multiple people at once so that you're not attaching yourself too quickly to just one person. Um,
Oh, that's a good one.
yeah.
That's a
Yes,
good one.
it's helpful. It's very helpful. Yeah, yeah, so, getting to know multiple people at once at the same time so you don't get too attached. It helps to not pedestal, just one person at a time. Um, and just pacing yourself, paying attention, the first 3 months, and it's an experiment. You're assessing, you're the researcher. So you really want to assess, how does someone respond to stress? How does someone respond to me sharing vulnerabilities or putting up boundaries, right? Do they back off? Do they get defensive? It's really a time for you to kind of experiment and see, really assess someone's behaviors, assess their reactions, because for long-term sustainability, you want to think about that, because you're going to experience a lot of stress in relationships. Things are going to happen and you want to know that this person is going to react in a pretty healthy or solid way. So, taking 3 months as this is an experiment, I'm the researcher and I'm just simply going to assess. This is not my husband, right? It's not my wife. I have no idea who this person is yet. They're just a stranger. It's just a crush. I don't know where I heard this. They're just a crush until you get to know them. It's true.
It is so true.
Yeah.
It's so true because at first, the excitement in meeting somebody and learning about the other person's hobbies and interests and personality is exciting. But then once you really get to know them and regulate yourself and see you guys don't have a lot of stuff in common, that's when everything goes sour.
Right. And you want to assess for compatibility, not that chemistry or that connection. Connection is great, but it's not the same as compatibility. So compatibility is, yeah, do we have similar values in common? Are we able to support each other's needs? Do we have the same goals, the same intentions for life? Like that takes time to assess because anyone can say anything to you the first couple of dates.
Yeah.
So you
Just
need
impress you, right?
Exactly. So you need time to assess the patterns. And 3 months, not always, sometimes you need longer than that, but 3 months can kind of give you a good idea of how you feel in the relationship.
I heard somewhere that they said that before you make a decision to date somebody, you have to go on a road trip with them and then find out how they are alone in the car with you. In it.
I love that. My mom actually told me, like, travel with them before, you decide. Because it's true. So many things are happening,
Yeah.
so many opportunities to see how are they going to react? How are they going to respond to this?
Yeah, I'll add on to that. Like, I definitely that's a good idea to they like go with multiple people to not get attached to one. But the other thing that I would add, see them when they're under pressure. Like
Mm.
create a scenario that they can be under the pressure and see how they react before you call them your husband or wife.
Yes. Girl, if I would have known this before, I would have.
You, how about me if I would have? It would have saved me so much
Oh,
divorce and all of that stuff.
if I could have listened to this episode 10 years ago, I would have saved myself a lot of heartache. Yeah.
Well, this is why we're doing this as a wonderful people like yourself to bring it to these girls and boys out there that are about their journey to find their true love and their soulmate and the best friend and have an amazing, healthy relationship that is so aligned within yourself. Then this is the episode you should listen and you know,
Yeah. Yeah. And something I wanted to add to that too is it might take time. When
yeah.
you start to become secure in yourself, and again, you're rooted in your values, your needs, what you want, your intentions, the dating pool, I don't want to say that it gets smaller, but it's, you're just so much more selective about who you choose, and because, like you said, it is, you want to find that partnership, that real partnership, and that might take time, and that's okay. Yeah.
And it's so worth it, Jessica, because you only need one.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, in the end of the day, I mean, think about it. Once you have that, it's a journey. You go through a lot of stuff, learning about yourself, maneuvering through the obstacles. But once you find that one for life, then that's it, game over. It's so worth it to take your time. And like you said, pace yourself.
Mm. Yeah. And then when you do find that one, you really appreciate it. Like you really appreciate it, which is so important because you
Yeah.
wanna you wanna have that appreciation for what you have. Yeah.
I think love and partnership is the highest energy in the world. And I want everybody to experience that.
Mm.
But unfortunately, society made it so difficult for us, and with all these rules and regulation. But in the end of the day, if you are complete and utterly yourself and you're content and you can speak your mind and you can live your values, I think that's as good as it's gonna get, Jessica.
I agree. I'm with you on there. I completely agree. You have nothing to lose by being your most authentic self. Nothing
Yeah.
to lose.
What is the most common attachment your clients talk about with you?
It's kind of a balance right now. It's anxious and avoidant. Anxious attachers are often they're kind of like the catalysts to growth. They often seek more of that help and support. But honestly, times are changing. Like I have a lot of avoidant male clients right now, a lot of male clients, which
Mhm.
is beautiful to see. It's beautiful to see. So it's kind of a balance right now.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Jessica, thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your amazing story and your advice for our listeners because they are struggling with a lot of these issues that we talk about communication, boundaries, attachment, all of that. So we really appreciate you.
Oh my gosh, that was so lovely. Thank you for having me, and I hope it was helpful.